goes on, and they come to a place that's called Gethsemane, and he tells his disciples, sit here while I pray. And he took Peter, James, and John with him and began to be troubled and deeply distressed. So here is the area where the Garden of Gethsemane would have been on the Mount of Olives. This is an olive tree, a very ancient tree that is there on the Mount of Olives. It goes back to Roman times. It's not quite back to the time of Christ, but it's a very ancient tree, and there are some others there that are very old. So you can just sort of picture a garden, a lot of olive trees around there. The word Gethsemane means olive press. So this would be a place not only where olives grew, but where they were pressed. And so Jesus instructs his disciples to sit and wait, and he takes Peter, James, and John with him, and he goes and he begins to be overwhelmed with grief, deeply troubled and distressed, it says in verse 33. And he says to them in verse 34, my soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even to death. Stay here and watch. So he leaves them there, and he goes a little farther and falls to the ground and prays that if it were possible, the hour might pass from him. Jesus knows what is coming. He knows the excruciating agony that he's going to have to face in being crucified on a cross. But even more so, he knows the weight that he's going to have to bear as he gives himself up for all the sins of mankind. And the weight of that, I'm sure, bore heavily upon him. Here he is, the innocent Son of God, the Lamb of God, giving himself under such extreme duress for the sins of the world. He prays that the hour might pass. In verse 36, he calls upon God as Abba, Father. Abba being a term of endearment for a father. Abba, Father, all things are possible for you. Take this cup away from me. Nevertheless, not what I will, but what you will. And in praying this prayer, Jesus shows us how we ought to pray in times of great distress. Maybe we're about to have to go through something that we have to go through. We don't want to do it. Maybe it's not going to be pleasant, but for the Lord's sake, we need to do it. We can pray like Jesus prayed. He wasn't looking forward to all of this, but he did want to do the Father's will no matter what. And the Father's will was more important than his own. We see that throughout. Jesus returns and he finds the three disciples sleeping. He says to Peter, Simon, are you sleeping? Could you not watch 1 hour? Watch and pray, lest you enter temptation. The spirit is indeed willing, but the flesh is weak. Twice more, the Lord goes and prays. He prays fervently these same words. He comes back and he finds the three disciples asleep. The third time, he asked them in verse 41, are you still sleeping and resting? It is enough. The hour has come. Behold, the Son of Man is being betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand. So he tells them, this is the time. They couldn't stay awake. It was late at night, probably after midnight or thereabouts. They'd been through a long day. It had been a long week of teaching, listening to Jesus, being with him, lots of things going on. And indeed, the flesh was weak, and they fell asleep. But now the time